Not a child washed. I'm just going to do a quick comparative retrospect here. I haven't planned it out too well. I'm sure I could put a lot more detail into this. A comparative between contemporary Ireland and the Bible. Yes. People that lived in the Middle East that didn't have a Bible, and they were just acting, even under bad lordship, and had prudence and intelligence to overcome a backward sailing system. You had Gideon's Gospels, Bibles, and everything in Ireland, and you claim to be a very Christian country, steeply Christian country. Travellers in particular claim to be very religious people. This is an interesting retrospect. So Joseph was in slavery and bondage for 7 years, and told his government where he was, about this, and they amended the situation immediately with the apology of Potiphar. My government became aware of this at the exact same time, in good time actually, approaching year 7, about year 6.5, and they decided to conceal their oversight. It's not an embarrassment. They decided to conceal their mistake. They didn't want to be, what would the neighbours think? So they left Joseph down the well, and he's been there for another 8 to 9 years now. So, just greedy and adulterous effort of the Irish government. Judas Iscariot, after realising he had accidentally betrayed Jesus, committed to instant suicide and felt so bad about it he went and took his own life. IRA, Sinn Féin, most of the, they used to call me fellow brethren. Most of the people in Ireland have realised that they have utterly cheated me. They actually wanted a finder's fee, buggered me, and conspired with, per se, the Roman Empire, the Rose world actually. And it's kind of like the Rose, it's the Gypsies more so than the Empire. So they conspired with all these monsters from Florida and various pseudo-religious cults and so forth. And they don't even feel bad about it, and they're fully informed on the matter. They know what they're doing, and they still shamelessly don't care, and they're still committing to conspiring against me. And fornicating with my wife, which is, as we see in the revelation of Jesus Christ, that this is the problem right here. Is they bring John the Divine on Patmos and they show him this is what's been always the problem. Pretty much the nutshell of the history of all apocalypse in this Bible. Well, one of the aspects of how to destroy Israel or his family. Take me to your leader. Me and my friend Luke had to say, take me to your leader's wife. Make it much easier. Helen of Troy. Lots of stories. Chess. You could take the queen. Pretty much one if you take the queen. I'll just move away and get another bride. Some girl somewhere, legitimate girlfriend, and love her more than love yous and blow yous out of the water. Just any love for me left. There's not any love for me left. It's been stolen. My sacred heart has been stolen and bled for every drop, and they're still bleeding. So Judas took his life instantly, and these horrible Irish Shemites now don't even feel bad about it. Fornicating with the wife, yeah. This is one way of destroying Israel, or destroying a lord, or destroying his... Jesus wasn't married. He was unlawfully married. They used gypsy magic to unlawfully marry him to one of the people he had come by in his life. They do this to me all the time. They do this excessively because they want more wives, so they practically marry me to everybody I walk down the street past. And I obviously went into isolation for many years and hid alone and didn't even make a sound. That didn't help. That just gave them more free roam to go around and shopping for themselves with my name. And they were hanging outside your... it's funny, I thought they'd be outside like discos and stuff, and looking for like all the ladies. They're worse. They're outside libraries. They're outside public libraries, culling your innocent virgins, studying very hard for their leaving certs. That's how broken and scary it is, yeah. And Jeremiah, you know what I mean? Who can stand? So the Irish are even worse again. And particularly in this country, because you see so many statues in this country of the Holy Mother Mary, the mother of our Lord Jesus Christ. We don't really talk about Miss Magdalene too much. It was one of, if not the only unlawfully wedded wife unto Jesus. There's a big problem in Ireland in regards to the Magdalene children, because might have been hidden all the way out here because they couldn't hide her anyway in France, and they tried to hide her in France, and probably came out to Ireland. Lots of different stories, probably changed her name to Maeve or something like this. You wouldn't know. It's very hush-hush and it's very concealed. But was protected out here in Ireland, that's the thing. The lands of 1,000 welcomes, we protected her. We were very blessed for protecting her. And, I'm sorry, hard time doing. And these are all buggering this virtually similar character, my friends and families. And even the IRA and Sinn Féin are like stalking my friends and families and even abducting some of them. It makes me very problematic and makes me in trouble, but they leave me just wandering around. That's a method. It's a good question. Why don't they just recruit you and put you in a box or give you a modelling contract? But for some reason, like Alexander Supertramp, they just let you wander. And he definitely suffered this type of Israel jihad. Definitely gave all his money away, went off walking in one direction, wouldn't return, wouldn't come into exchange. These are all completely and utter telltale signs of this behaviour that he was exhibiting. He was a very rich and powerful person, this Alexander. He didn't care for money. It's like that's why he inherited all the money of the world, because he would have only used it for goodness sake. He's a very, very, very wealthy man, and he just got cheated, robbed, and run into a ditch where he ultimately starved or was delivered in silence. So back to the wife of the Lamb and fornicating with the wife. I was going to talk more about Magdalene Laundries and all their Irish babies who are very special, that were being even obliviously by the Irish and the priests and the nuns in this country were harvesting Magdalene women and their babies and making me feel so ashamed and taking them away and giving them to Switzerland because they're worth a fortune, probably virtually on a profane price tag, but sold to New York and Switzerland and the French and all your Magdalene babies if they weren't burnt per Holocaust. So this is how Ireland even worse again. Ireland's kind of obliviously doing this to themselves. It's particularly with all the statues of Mother Mary in this country, where she's preserved, almost to see as cyan and white. It's just perfectly preserved. You want this sparkly blue and white preservation. I used to have this sparkly blue and white preservation of a figure in my life who now, if you see her, she's pink and in PVC and bent over and wanting more. But that's a preserved woman. Like, that's, in this case, this preserved the mother, and that was some sort of wife or shemite that I had preserved in my celibacy. And my good-willing nature towards people and women in particular. So they're worse this time because they're fornicating with the mother. And they didn't even do this back then. They were fornicating with the unlawful wedded wife, the oblivious Babylonian lady. And but this time they're fornicating with my mother. A lot, like they're holy motherfuckers this time. And that is what FUCK stands, fornicating with a carnal knowledge. It's a crime, it's an acronym for a crime, more so than a swear word. So, this is why they're even worse this time, just particularly with all the statues of Mary around this country, and preserving Mary, and preserving the wife of the Lamb, and preserving, and now they're bonking constantly, competitively, non-stop fornicating with her. They even went up to Donegal, and they have this like silent Kabul fortress up there, where God knows what they're doing, murdering animals, and prostitution, and drugs, and slipping around like serpents in the dark. But I guess they're fornicating with the mother this time, and that didn't even happen back then. No one even crossed their mind to fornicate with his mother. And they were all suffering and being persecuted. Might have treated her like a heifer or a trophy or something. I wouldn't want to say it's disgraceful to even think about it. But they are competitively and knowledgeably, again, that's a big part of FUCK, that they know what they're doing. Jesus said, forgive them because they know what they're doing. And I said, they know exactly what they're doing this time because I told them explicitly what they're doing, so they won't be forgiven. But that's how Ireland are even stuck against their holy mother, FUCK-ers. So it's even worse again. Ireland, Bertie and Nicodine, in case I look like a fucking stage, in case you're wondering why I look so fucking messed up. They do these things in my name. They murder women and cattle, and they fornicate and have orgies in my name. And so the song comes from killing in the name and fucking in the name. So me and my family, my mother particularly, used to have a big golden Buddha. My mother used to have a big golden Buddha face, and not so much anymore. And they wash their sins in our cloths, and we look messed up. Some us fias and stink of their orgies and stuff, and their unlawful unions. If it's like a union that was meant to be together and lawful, they kind of tell them not to sell all your perfume secrets. And if it's unlawful union, then it smells horrible, absolutely rank horrible. And they can do this on purpose just to make you smell because they're like that, spiteful and childish, so they keep you smelling and ugly. Sumas fallas eripera domenio reino moyoto. So how else have Ireland buggered themselves? I think I said this in a video. I reckon Oliver Cromwell was a very intelligent person. I want to see the reaction to that in Ireland. Oliver Cromwell, this international tradesman, came to Ireland and liberated Ireland as much as like America go to places and liberate Americans. And they're trying to pretty much conquer the Irish. And you can never beat the Irish, but you can let them beat off and beat themselves. So I imagine Mr. Cromwell came to Ireland and told Paddy how to fornicate with the wife of the lamb, and they all thought it was deadly, and they all got addicted to it, and they all started lying around like serpents on the floor, and telling all their cousins and telling everyone until there was absolute famine and Ireland destroyed itself. And then Cromwell just cleaned it all up, and chased it all off, and he just ran away. Probably never doing harm to any of it. He's probably just did it to yourselves. It's an assumption, but I'm fairly certain that's what happened, because it led to famine. It's like during that Cromwell thing, kind of like about 7 or 8 years, probably later, about 7 or 8 years after Cromwell came to Ireland, depending on the success of his education. It's hard to teach Paddy anything. It's very hard to teach Paddy. And then they seem to take up masturbation very, very when they teach a school of wank. The Irish are good at this. They know how to sit around and wank and all day. The Gardaí in particular, you know what I mean? They're on duty. They're working on it. So you're paying them. But how else are Ireland crapper than? Also had a bit of a gypsy apostlehood of people that the 12 apostles were down the docks. You have to remember these weren't scholars in the schools. The people that Jesus recruited immediately were kind of like the dodgiest people around town, down in the docks. Not to say anything about the apostles, but they weren't, going out that day to become heroes and legends. They were going out that day to fish and do a bit of dodgy dealing, maybe down the market, a bit of this and a bit of that. And I kind of had this gangsters and mafias, and I tried to teach them. I didn't mind teaching them at all. I knew if I taught them, they'd be persecuted. Because they'd say, oh, he's building an army. I was like, I'm not really building an army, but I tried my best to teach these people. And many years left my door wide open and told them to speak to me, and they never did. They all conspired. So, I think that's apostates, because it's typically assumed that they will conspire and rip you off. And it's called apostates, I think, in the Book of Enoch. But then you had the apostles, who didn't rip off Jesus and worked with him and for him, and even after continued on his legacy, delivering the sword of Elisha throughout the world. And then they all got punished for converting people to Christianity and stuff. And this is a big birth pang. That's why you'll suffer birth pangs, because there's going to be a very hard time in between these tides until they engulf the world like the sword of Elisha, when people will be refusing it, coveting it, exploiting it, but it'll eventually consume the entire world. That's why I win. Now or later. We can make it very silent Buddha birth about this whole thing and do it very gracefully. We're already 8 or 9 years in, so... or we can have this very long, painful, drawn-out birth where the mother might die or something, because it's long, painful, and drawn out too long. Earth, being your mother, will probably perish. If you see me weep, if you see King. So how else are Ireland pre-gospel disgraces or pre-biblical disgraces? They got their 30 pieces of silver, and they wanted to spread it out like butter, and they gave it to the people of Ireland primarily. That's why Ireland is as wealthy as Beijing. And why? Scum go to the top. That's why where you find scum at the top. It's like Beijing or something. Communism worked very hard. Ireland at the top. Any other ways, these holy motherfuckers, how you're absolutely pre-biblical fucking disgraces and complete and utter infidels and anti-prophets and Christ-killing holy motherfuckers. If such things were witnessed in Tyr and Sidon, there'd be no problem. They've witnessed many things around me already, and they're still very Irish and passive and just carry on and not doing anything about it. So that's another way. They didn't do anything about it. Still bunch of cowards and chickens and greedy fucking wankers. See, Jesus wasn't tempted with them women at all, and I wasn't tempted with women at all. Jesus was slightly tempted by the fortune of the world, probably being a young man or the youngest of a family who was told he'd never really have too much money. The family would have the money, kind of thing. Wasn't tempted with this either, because that's through Christ, because I was Christian. So I had these protections, and it gets better and better the more prudent and protected you are. You can get it better, better and better. The Lord is it. So Ireland, any last comments on how Ireland are worse than all the fucking gypsies in the Bible? Ahab and Jezebel gobbled them all up. They're working with them, so like they're culling their own kids and family. I think this is really funny, like the Irish Republican Army and you're like the Black and Tans, you're a bunch of pseudo criminals, or criminals, pseudo military, and you're running around bullying, harvesting, dominating, fornicating with wives of families, terrorising your own country, your own republic, and you're the Irish Republican Army military experts. So it's pretty fucking laughable of how stupid the Irish are. Ahab and Jezebel, yeah, they're all bunking Miley Cyrus, who's the Jezebel character of your current world, contemporary world. Some stupid sex slave that's been fornicating with devilly names or devilly spirits for a very long time, and is very deeply mithered and all this stuff. And the IRA and Sinn Féin all were bonking Jezebel for a very long time, still are. And Miley Cyrus is a tranny, like, you know, they're going on about queer, you're a queer, you're a faggot, you're a buff, and Miley Cyrus is transgendered, well, obviously. And they were all fornicating with her for 8 or 9 years, and she kind of she's dead now, but had a problem with a type of sickness that they're all eugenically spreading around in the pool. So well done, IRA, Sinn Féin, yeah. You boys are sick, literally. You have a sickness. And spreading it onto me, I'm immortal and probably am suffering this sickness, but you know, I won't die from it like the rest of you. Any last regards? Jezebel. Pontius Pilate. You got no Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate was great. Etcha homo. He's done nothing wrong. Why do you hate this man? What's wrong? Got into your heads? What the hell's the matter with you? I think Putin might be my Pontius Pilate, but he won't kill me. Like, he won't bend and break to the will of his will. Because I'd say it's very cold in the tank. Okay, cool. Thanks, man. Hop in there now. Yeah, that's cool. That 40 is all I need, yeah. Thanks. 40 is all I need. Thanks. Not a child washed. Yeah, Holy Mother of God, worse than that way. Potter for 7 years, just greedy, adultery. Adultery is when you care more about what the people in the world around you think than what the God thinks about you. Or do you think you can get away with things that God won't know about it? So the fact that Higgins tried to conceal his mistake or his overlook. And he's scarlet as well. He thinks he's some sort of psychic gypsy as well these days. They're all false prophets. So it's adultery, thinking that he can get away, or people can get away with these things and they won't have to face some sort of judgment or reconciliation of some sort, or that they can get away with. There's no such thing as a perfect crime. It's adultery. Again, it is adulterous to cheat on your wife, but it's not explicit adultery. Explicit adultery is, well, it is adulterous. You're completely and utterly adulterous if you're cheating on your wife and you made a promise, particularly to your Lord and your wife, and you're running around and anything your wife doesn't know, but then you're kind of implying that the Lord doesn't know, in the very least as well. So that's why it's explicitly adultery. You lied, and you thought you could get away with it. And you fixed the music. I'm sure I could think about other ways and how these are pre-biblical, worse than all the Bible mistakes. And that's why it's the big book of mistakes, Ireland. So it's there, so you learn from it and you don't repeat these mistakes. And these have nearly repeated every mistake in the book. As far as Decalogue is concerned, you're all around my area, surrounded my area. He's built houses on the shores of Troy. He's claimed to be neighbours in my neighbourhood, and he's abused my name in vain. He's fornicate, you covet my wife. I'm not married, but again, I'm unlawfully married. You're coveting these, all 17, or there's probably hundreds of them, I don't know. Kidnapping again, thou shalt not steal. Kidnapping is thou shalt not steal the names of their relationships more than anything. You can mess with each other. Yeah, so that's why they don't tell you about it. And you can mess with your neighbours' relationships, and you can make people hate each other, or you can make people love each other. This is, again, massively important for politics and stuff. They're all competing and trying to make people hate each other and make people love them at the same time, and it's very ignorant and unfair on the populace that they're pulling them and swaying them and driving them in different ways, and they have absolutely no idea about it. Sinn Féin got elected this way, so you ought to know this is how Sinn Féin got elected by befriending, by working for, by being little greedy servants, little orc army to Miami, and Miami said we'll get you elected, and Miami used, well, Sinn Féin and the Mahon lads were using phone books and wank magic, the phone books like the national directories and wank magic to get Sinn Féin elected. But I'd imagine the Miami and Florida did the most part of that kind of, you call it training and manipulation, based brainwashing is, and that's how Sinn Féin and the IRA got elected. And this country has been torn apart and fallen to absolute crap in this time. The president from Florida, Higgins, and then their little urchin army trying to get into power, and they've done horrible things since Sinn Féin, because they've got access to like loads of stuff now. So Sinn Féin aren't really a political party, they're politically self-interested, and political parties are meant to be politically interested, they're for the people, but Sinn Féin are personally interested, and I wouldn't let you be a political party if you had too many personal interests. And they just treat us like we have an opportunity. They're opportunities, we've Garda uniforms now, we've judges, we can have government control and persuasion in this country. It's terrible, 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 terrible times. This rose world ridden Western runaway government harvesting and killing all the kids, and it's even on the news, like, and more children have been killed under religious absurdity. It's like, I warned you, look around you. It's illegal to protest, though, and properly in this country you can't do anything about it. So you just, goodbye Blackberry Way. Sorry about you, Ireland. Yeah, you're going to suffer from absenteeism. Didn't hearken unto the Lord, and there will be famine and death and stillborn babies. The weather will turn crappy in this country. Well, my family will still be here, but the weather will be a lot crappier when I move away. Lot crapper when I move away. Everything will be a lot crapper in Ireland when I move away, and I'll bring pot to fur too. I'll not tell you where I'm going, and I'll prosper greatly there. They'll just give me a job, might meet a girl. So simple, so very simple. And wherever I am will prosper. And the Western world has had their opportunity, and they're all holy scarlet. I think that's why I can't work with them now at this stage, and I didn't realise why. It's impossible for me, because they're all scarlet or marked. And I can't work with them. It's like in the tabernacle. They went through all the people in the tabernacle, and they kind of had to, say, oops, sorry, man, you've give you a little, oh, you're a bit scarlet there, buddy. I think you or your great-granddad or somebody had a little bit too much fun. They couldn't work with them, and they had to go wander off into the deserts and into some sort of exile. And this is, I think, where Abraham went off into exile, but then Abraham redeemed himself. I can't remember. I haven't been able to study my Torah so much lately. But it might have been where Abraham might have been scarlet and had to go wander in the desert and then redeemed his line. Or I don't think if he was in the temple. He was in the temple. They're usually born outside the temple. That's what's funny about it. Like, even Jesus was born outside the temple. He was born in a manger. He wasn't born in the hostels, as they had back then in the temple, hostels of the temple, lodges, I imagine, kind of thing. But yeah, the best stuff usually starts off out in the middle of nowhere, and it's very unusually born in the church again, because the church has just become corrupt, like a republican things or royalty, and it usually is born off out in the wilderness somewhere again. Start again. That's why they had to leave Egypt. It wasn't going to be born in Egypt. Everyone was in Egypt, and they said, please go out into the desert and start again. And that's why you're a gypsy if you keep in Egypt. Gypsy. You carry on being a gypsy. That's good for I got this interesting thing that travellers always get mistaken for gypsy. It's the opposite way around. A gypsy is a settled person. Gypsy, Egypt. People stayed and settled in Egypt. And the people that travelled away, travellers, were kind of like the Jews, essentially. Well, they became the Jews. They were the children of Israel, the people that travelled away from the gypsy lands, the towns, the city, the corrupt city, It's weird that they are always mistaken, because there's different types, I suppose, just people that wandered away, and then there's people who are wandering, who were put into exile for being gypsies or something, maybe, and they wandered around a bit. But it's interesting to get confused, because a traveller is the opposite to being gypsy. But then there's no reason a traveller, I suppose, can't become a gypsy as well. But yeah, they're strangely confused. Gypsies are subtle people, more so like royalty and people in cities, and travellers are people that can move around and don't become stagnant. And it was a very religious way of life, but they've completely forgotten about that in Ireland, and they're fornicating with the wife of the lamb or something, competitively doing so. So they're actually just sacrilegious gypsies now, and you're cursing your entire family's names and all the efforts you've put into being a traveller or wandering shepherds. You've completely buggered yourselves now, boys. Don't mean to be bearing the bad news, but I didn't do it, you know what I mean? I was begging you constantly to stop tormenting me in front of you. Anyway, you're free to be revealed, aren't you? And that's what it's all about. So yeah, be revealed. He's made your choices, title known. He did what thou wilt. And yeah, you're free to do it. And you will not be forgiven this time, because I told you so. Okay, I have to go wash myself.